Thank you very much, Matt. And before I start, I want to say thank you for the possibility to speak at the ICA here in Sydney. It's a long way from Germany to Australia. It's a one-day flight, and so I spent 2 weeks holiday here in Sydney, and it was very nice. I can say I've enjoyed it much, and yeah, it's a great pleasure. Yeah, and now let's start with my presentation. As Matt mentioned in the introduction, I'm a health actuary for 25 years, and also I'm in different working groups for the German Actuarial Association in terms of sustainability, ESG, climate change. And so my topic was how can I bring these both topics together? And so the question arose how the health risks are dependent from or dependent to the climate change and the climate change in Germany. And before I start with the analysis and the results of the analysis, I want to show a little bit or talk a little bit about the climate change situation in Germany. On the left-hand side, you see the graphic of the IPCC 6 assessment report, where you can see that the global warming is 1.2 degrees up to 2020. It's 1.1. Therefore, thereof is human-made greenhouse gas emissions are the cause. And in Germany, the situation is much more worse. We have a increase of the average temperature from 1880, the pre-industrial period, to 2020, the same period, of 2.6 degrees. So the situation is much different from the global situation. And if you look at the last 20 years, you can see that the 7 warmest summers in Germany are in the last 20 years. So the climate change in Germany is much relevant. I have looked a little bit deeper in the data to understand the development of the warming in Germany, and I analyzed more than 1,000 weather stations from Germany. I have data from 1880 to 2021 looked at, and on the left-hand side, I looked at the temperatures of our summer, on the other side of the world, on the opposite side of the world. So our summer is from June to August, and I analyzed the temperatures in this period from 1951 up to 2021. 1951 is a good starting point for this because before 1950 we have one-off effects of because of World War II, and so you can look at the data from 1950 on. And the orange line is my basis line. This is the quantile function of the summer temperatures in the period from 1951 to 1980. So these 3 decades are my basis line. And then I looked at the decades after that, the 1980s, 1990s, and so on. And you can see on the one hand that the temperatures increase overall. And if you look at the 90% quantile of the period in 1951 to 1980, this is now, in the last 10 years, the 77% quantile. So the hot temperatures from the 3 decades, 1951 up to 1980s, are now 2.5 times oftener in Germany than in this period. And if you look at the 98% quantile in the basis line, it is now 92% quantile. So there's an extreme increase of hot weather events in Germany over the last 10 or 20 years. And on the right-hand side, I have plotted or I have analyzed the average numbers of heat waves year by year. This is also made so that 1951 up to 1980 is my basic, and you can see in this period you have years with more than the average number of heat waves, or you have many years with a smaller number of heat waves. Heat wave is here defined as a period of 3 consecutive days of 30 degrees. There are many other different definitions of this. I want to keep it simple here. And if you look at the last 10 or 15 years, you will find no year, I think, or only 1 or 2 years, which have a smaller number of heat waves than the comparison period from 1950 to 1980. So heat waves and heat extremes are a big topic over the last 10 or 20 years in Germany. This is what I want to show with these slides. What are the impacts on health? Of course, there are different kind of impacts. I'll keep it short here. You have direct impact, of course. You have death because of flooding events or heavy rain. We have a very big flood 2 years ago in Germany with some hundred of deaths, with injuries, infections. Of course, we have diseases, which is what I will show in the on the next slides. You have new illnesses like mental health problems like stress, anxiety, depressions. On the other hand, you have indirect impacts on human health, vector-borne diseases. Also, COVID is a topic which comes from loss of biodiversity, for example. And in Germany, it's a topic of new allergens because of hotter summers and a broader period where allergens can fly. Air pollution and quantity and quality of drinking water is not so important for Germany. So if you want to quantify all these topics, and you look in the literature and you look in different studies, you will find very much about mortality risks. And I have one here obviously for the city here. One of these studies are all these studies, or the graphics from all these studies looking like this. You have an ERF, an exposure response function, which shows an optimal temperature where you have the normal risk of mortality, and on the lower side and the upper side of the temperature range, you have an increase of this mortality risk rates. So, and yeah, I looked at the literature, and I searched something comparable or similar to morbidity. So, because I'm a health actuary, I'm not so interested in mortality risk. I'm more interested in morbidity and morbidity risk. And so we asked, how can we quantify temperature dependency on morbidity? And what is also important, if you're an actuary, you know that there are different features which are responsible for risk, and so we want to identify different groups which are particularly under risk. So what is age dependency, for example, or people with some chronic diseases, or so You have also see the specific demographic development in Germany. We have a more and more older population. Our population is getting older and older. This is also a consequence, I think, from World War II. It's and we have baby boomer years in the 1960s and 1970s, and so these people are now in the end of the 50s and beginning of the 60s, and they growing up more and more in the older ages. And if climate change or the hotter temperatures will bring more risk for these kind of people, so this could be also a problem for our health system. If we had some analysis and also an ERF for morbidity risk, we can use it for the risk management. We can use this. For application of different risks or climate change scenarios, for example. And on the other hand, it's not only about risk, it's also about chances, and you have to look at adaptation measures. You have to think about new production features, more prevention, for example, or how can I prevent the vulnerable groups of people in terms of climate change and more heat-related diseases. So this is the setting for our analysis. These are the questions, or this is what we wanted to do. And now we come to the practical problems, I would say. Yeah, it's the question, how can the impact be quantified, and how must the data be prepared? This is a big topic, I think. And what could be a suitable mathematical model? I don't say this model is the best model or the only model, and I think we will find much more dependent variables. Here it is keep simple. What we have done, I can a little bit talk about this. We have done with a young student in Germany a bachelor thesis about this, and we have used a very broad data set from a German private health insurance company. Perhaps short explanation. The German health insurance system is on the one hand, it's a public health insurance system. 90% of our population are public, and on the other hand, we have 10% in the private health. Private health is much more actuarial, and all the German, or the most German health actuaries are working in the private health insurance, and so we have a data set from private health insurance. This is for the period from 2006 up to 2018. So a period with significant heat waves and heat extremes. We have this data set on a single contract basis, which means we have all the information about the personal policyholders, and on the other hand, we have all the information about the invoices and the claims. And it was millions, hundreds of millions of data set we had. And we selected from this data set all the cases which have an inpatient cardiovascular diseases. We can do this via the ICD-10 code system. In Germany, we use the ICD-10 codes for the diagnosis, and we selected chapter I-20 to I-24 and looked all the inpatient cases. We have grouped our portfolio to age groups, to gender, to region. We have a postal code system, and we can use this. And we also looked at the start of the treatment. This is also what we need for our analysis. And on the other hand, I have my more than 1,000 weather data from my weather station data, and I could link the weather data to the insurance data over the postal code. And so I'm able to have a combination of the claims and the information about the weather. We looked at much different KPIs from the different variables from the weather data. Here in this presentation, I only have the maximum temperature as a describing variable used. We looked also at the average of the last 14 days before start of treatment, but we haven't seen a big dependence on this for the results. So you can think we are ready now to analyze, but this is unfortunately not true and not possible, because if you have a portfolio from an insurer for such a long time, this portfolio is moving. You have new business, you have deaths, you have lapses, and you have regulation changes, and so the portfolio changes a lot over this period of 13 years. On the left-hand side, you can see the age structure has changed a lot, and on the right-hand side, you can see that the regional distribution also changed a lot. And so if you only count cases, this would be bring not the right result. In our bachelor thesis, we decided to go to a homogeneous subset of all the data and analyze this. Here in this presentation, I have another approach. I look at quotas. I looked at the daily hospitalization ratio. So I counted the daily inpatient cases and built the relation to the number of policyholders. So if the portfolio moves and the structure is changing, the relation is also reasonable. So, and if you look at the hospitalization ratio, you can see on the upper side for two age groups, 20 to 44, and the age group 85 plus, that you have, of course, the amount of the hospitalization ratio differs from the younger population to the older population. This is on the one hand, what you can see, and also the structure is a little bit different. Yeah, have a little more cases in the tail at the older ages than in the younger ages. But what you also have to look at, the number of observations and the higher and lower temperatures are very, very low. So these points here, and also here, are not very significant, or it's not very reasonable to take this into account of the analysis. But obviously, you have a dependency in the temperature. You can see. Yeah, the mathematical model we use is a general additive model. I have two slides about this, but I think I can go through this. It's quite the same as a linear model, but also with nonlinear functions. And we used the cubic smoothing splines for the approximation. And this is only a normal least square minimization, I would say. It's not so important now. Much more interesting, perhaps, are the results, and you can see the blue curves are the smoothing curves, regressions, and there are you have reference temperature where you have a minimum, and in the younger and in the older ages, you have an increase in the lower and in the upper temperatures. In the age group 75 to 84, and also here in the age group 65 to 74, you can't see the increase at the end for the upper or for the higher temperatures. Not so clear. I explained this so that normally in the normal age for a heart attack or cardiovascular disease are in the ages from 65 to 80. So the temperature dependence are not so high in these ages. Here you, and on the upper side, you have the something like an ERF, an exposure response function. So this is only the curve of the probabilities, the temperature-dependent probabilities. What I do not want to hide is that there are obviously big uncertainty in the results. And this is, for me, it's quite normal, and it's no problem to have this. Yeah, come to my conclusion. What we have seen is that higher and lower temperature will have an impact on the morbidity cases, the number of morbidity cases, or the ratio of morbidity cases. And of course, we have to better the analysis, and we have to take more variables into account. But if you have this, you can use it for your risk management system. For example, you can apply these ERFs, for example, to different climate scenarios and to estimate the number of diseases and the future claims cost. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexander. We're a little bit short on time, so we might quickly go to Ken's presentation, if that's all right. We'll talk about obesity. While you get yourself together, I actually had one question, because your study focused on cardiovascular risk and obviously the correlation with temperature. Do you have a sense of, if you were to look at, say, certain causes of cancer or other major causes of morbidity, whether or not you'd see similar effects?
Yes, we have looked at this in the original case study, but not here in this study. But we have looked at diseases from the policyholders, which they have before. Yes.
Thank you.